Okay, I don't know how far into this video we're gonna get, but Stix and Hammer 666, who's a regular on Chudwatch because, you know, he's a fascist. This is a video from 2014, so a decent bit ago, long before his cope robe came into the picture. He had some video where he's talking about the occult. People have told me to watch these on Tinfoil Tuesday because apparently he believes in occult stuff, which is very funny to me, that he both believes in the nonsense that is, like, far-right ideology, and he believes magic is real. So let's take a look and see what he has to say about the occult. Tucker White 94 with 20 bits. No, Hans mentioned Freemasons. Did he mention Freemasons or did he mention Freemartins? No, he did mention Freemasons. You're right, because he mentioned the last person's name was Mason. So real quick, Masons. If you have Freemasons on the bingo card, then you can do that one. Where are Freemasons? Illuminati Freemasons. There we go.
Alright, YouTube, I wanted to sort of go into a new series or mini-series or general theme of video making that I have sort of been focusing on political topics lately just because, you know, politics interest me anyway, but I realize that I've been sort of neglecting to make videos about the occult, about spirituality, theology, and so on.
You're right, he did talk about the pyramids too, so we also have disbelief, racist disbelief of historical events, which is, the pyramids are the big example of that, so. Sorry, we'll get to the video in just a sec. I just want to make sure I got this. There we go.
So forth. So while I'll continue to make political videos, I also want to get into the occult, magic, mysticism, metaphysics, whatever term you wish to give these various phenomena. And I thought there'd be a good way to start it, because I just got in the mail today a copy of the Simon Necronomicon, a contentious book, a contentious issue in which various groups of people claim that they have the final answer to what it's all about. I'd like to explain my own thoughts about this.
Spoilers, they don't. Magic isn't real.
I believe that I am at least mostly right in my surmisings about this particular work, which differs some from both the
Necronomicon. Hey, listen, if it's not written in human blood and bound in flesh, that's no Necronomicon, okay? The Necronomicon Ex Mortis is in the possession of one Ash Williams, okay? Don't get me into this paperback piddly bullshit, okay?
Those that actually use it as a literal grimoire, they take it quite literally. And though,
can we count this as ancient wisdom? No. I don't think the fucking Necronomicon, whatever bullshit he's got, is written in ancient times.
Those who are much more skeptical, and they believe that the Necronomicon is simply a modern forgery. It's not based on anything ancient. It has no actual purpose or power, and it's essentially a joke grimoire that people, you know, picked up at the secondhand store and dabbled around with it and thought it was cool and, you know, had some nightmares and finally burned it in a campfire or something. To the topic of the Necronomicon.
But Ash found it in the Middle Ages. Yes, he did. But in Ash versus the Evil Dead, it turned out he had possession of it once he returned to the future. Stone Corbell with 20 bits. Necronomicon is an invention of H.P. Lovecraft and his circle of author colleagues and friends. It was basically fan fiction that Lovecraft and his friends put together. That makes sense.
There are several groups of people that interpret the work differently. The first group, which seems to be the largest, are the Skeptics. They believe that the Necronomicon is essentially a modern-day fabrication that the author Simon basically cooked it up.
Let's take a look, shall we? Necronomicon. Necronomicon from Wikipedia. The Necronomicon, also referred to as the Book of the Dead or under a purported original Arabic title, Kitab al-Azif, is a fictional grimoire textbook of magic, appearing in stories by the horror writer H.P. Lovecraft and his followers. It was first mentioned in Lovecraft's 1924 short story, The Hound, written in 1922, though its purported author, Mad Arab Abdul al-Hazred, had been quoted a year earlier in Lovecraft's, quote, The Nameless City. Among other things, that actually wasn't a quote, that was just a title, sorry I said quote. Among other things, the work contains an account of the old ones, their history, and the means to summon them. Other authors, such as Augustus Derleth and Clark Ashton Smith, also cited the Necronomicon in their works. Lovecraft approved of other writers building on his work, believing such common allusions built up a, quote, background of evil verisimilitude. Many readers have believed it to be a real work, with booksellers and librarians receiving many requests for it. Pranksters have listed it in rare book catalogs, and a student smuggled a card for it into Yale University Library's card catalog. Capitalizing on the notoriety of the fictional volume, real-life publishers have printed many books entitled Necronomicon since Lovecraft's death. So basically, this would be like if in 100 years, someone found a copy of Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, and went, ooh, look, the wizarding world is real. I have this textbook that's, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, written by Newt Scamander. And then everyone else goes, that's a fictional book written from the perspective of people in the fictional Harry Potter universe. And they go, no, look, I have the book right here. Yeah, that was written with the express permission of J.K. Rowling to be a fictional textbook in the wizarding world that then got expanded into a movie later. They're literally taking fiction and pretending it's real. Oh my god, Stix. My expectations were low for you, but holy fuck.
Out of his own imagination, either as a joke or to make money or something along those lines, that it has no actual basis in ancient lore.
I'll count this as ancient wisdom. Even though it's not real ancient wisdom, he thinks it is, so I'm gonna count that. Sure. Where's ancient wisdom on here? Ancient wisdom. Fine. Do I have ancient wisdom? Ooh. I need chemtrails and a sighting from the 18th or 19th century, and I got a bingo.
And that actually performing any of the rituals is going to result in absolutely no effect because it's not real occultism.
Fun fact, Stix, there's no such thing as real occultism because magic isn't real. Although, I could hire a pretty good birthday magician if you'd like to see it done. Like, I don't know. Do you think when a clown pulls, like, a string of endless, like, handkerchiefs out of his nose, do you think that's the real occult, too? Magic isn't real! You're an adult! Stop it! Dr. Gamble with 20 bits, you said that there is now lower than Hans. You have been proven wrong by Stix. True. TubeMan642, teenagers in 100 years. I found this notebook with the word Death Note on it. It's totally real, bro.
There's nothing funny about the
Retro the Robot 33. Thank you for subscribing with Prime. Ooh, 33. Hans Wormhat. Get on top of this numerology shit.
The reason that I discard part of their beliefs, part of the skeptics' arguments, is that I haven't yet seen evidence, number one, that it actually is a fabrication. Now, I know that I'm simply just sort of ignoring...
That's not how evidence works, Stix. If you're making the claim, oh, this Necronomicon is the real Necronomicon, and by the way, the Necronomicon, which is a known piece of fictional literature from H.P. Lovecraft's writings, I believe that's real. If that's your claim, you need to back that claim up. Because that's the standard right now, is that H.P. Lovecraft made it the fuck up. That's known. If you are claiming, no, it's real, okay, then you need to demonstrate that.
There's nothing funny about the
gravy train.
Chesabel with 100 bits. I can't believe I fell asleep and missed this one. I wanted to see it. I had a Lovecraft Cthulhu-themed wedding. I mean, we just got started, so.
Of people who want to come out
How wealthy is Stix? You could see him becoming a Scientologist. I have no idea.
Against this work. I've seen no proof that it's legitimate, and I've seen no proof that it's a fabrication. so I can't actually derive any conclusion as to...
Oh my god. Okay, let's read more.
There's nothing funny about the
Origin. How Lovecraft conceived the name Necronomicon is not clear. Lovecraft said that the title came to him in a dream, although some have suggested that Lovecraft was influenced primarily by Robert W. Chambers' collection of short stories, The King in Yellow, which centers on a mysterious and disturbing play in book form. Lovecraft is not believed to have read the work until 1927. Donald R. Burleson has argued that the idea for the book was driven by the Nathaniel Hawthorne, though Lovecraft himself noted that, quote, moldy hidden manuscripts, end quote, were one of the stock features of Gothic literature. Lovecraft wrote that the title, as translated from the Greek language, meant an image of the law of the dead, compounded respectively from that, nekpok, nekros, I don't know how to read Greek. Law, blah, blah, image. Robert M. Price notes that the title has been variously translated by others as Book of the Names of the Dead, Book of the Laws of the Dead, Book of Dead Names, and Knower of the Laws of the Dead. S.T. Joshi states that Lovecraft's own etymology is almost entirely unsound. The last portion of it is particularly erroneous, since ikon is nothing more than a neuter adjectival suffix and has nothing to do with icon, image. Joshi translates the title as Book of Considering or Classifying the Dead. Lovecraft was often asked about the veracity of the Necronomicon and always answered that it was completely his invention. In a letter to Willis Conover, Lovecraft elaborated on his typical answer. Now about the terrible and forbidden books. I am forced to say that most of them are purely imaginary. There was never any Abdul al-Hazred nor Necronomicon, for I invented these names myself. Robert Bloch devised the idea of Ludwig Prynne and his De Veritas Mysteries, while the Book of Eibon is an invention of Clark Ashton Smith's. Robert E. Howard is responsible for Frederick von Junst and his Unsprechen, something German sounding. As for seriously written books on dark occult and supernatural themes, in all truth, they don't amount to much. That's why it's more fun to invent mythical works like Necronomicon and Book of Eibon. So literally, H.P. Lovecraft is on record being like, yeah, I made that up. I made it up for my fictional book series. And Stix is like, I don't know. Could be real. It's not. It's not real, Stix. Tucker White 94. Hey Hannah, your simp is in the room. Were you talking about Baja and Lupine? Because I knew they were here. Lovecraft was divinely inspired, just like the writers of the Bible. Lovecraft was just inspired by Cthulhu. That'd be a fun movie if Lovecraft wasn't a super huge racist sack of shit.
It's entirely possible that this author or someone close to them had access to much more ancient works. Also, within the Skeptics argument, and some of these individuals come from within the occult community, they argue that it simply uses certain ancient figures in an attempt to look, actually occult in nature, but that the rituals themselves are just sort of made up on the fly. It was written to look good, to sound good. Looking here, talking about the old gods and Lovecraft lore and so forth.
H.P. Lovecraft, it mentions, like, the old god. That's... Hello, hint, hint. H.P. Lovecraft's works are works of fiction. If it mentions the old gods, Cthulhu, or the, any of those individuals, the things that, like, live below that fucking village in the lake or whatever that they're mating with, why can't I remember? They're like Lord something gone, Tragon, something like that. Whatever. If it mentions these fictional characters, obviously it's fake.
It's got all of these little mini spells in it.
Dagon, that's what it is. Thank you, Lord Dagon. MMO Addicted with 40 bits. Fun fact, in his latter letters, Lovecraft lamented his earlier racism and wished he'd not written some of his books. Read about that recently. I mean, I hope that's true. It doesn't undo, his life, but that would be good if that's true.
Purification, invocation, to recover potency, and it's got all sorts of different things. The Great Conjuration.
I've not seen Lovecraft Country, no. I heard some people say it was good, I'm not sure though. Amora Miku with 50 bits. I hope for Stix' sake that this is a 40 grift that I don't understand. I don't think it is. I think he's just kind of into woo-woo.
All the powers. Preliminary invocation of the operation of calling of...
He was pretty anti-Semitic, too. Yeah.
the spirits of the dead and so forth. And it does borrow some of these
Honestly, that stuff might be why Stix likes him.
terms from Lovecraft's lore. However, these same individuals that seem to be saying this often regard something like the Lesser Keys of Solomon as a genuine occult work. The Lesser Keys of Solomon purports, it is essentially like the Necronomicon when you think about it, even though people give it a high reputation and say, oh, well.
Neither are real. Magic isn't real. Just for clarification, I don't care about your infighting between the crazies. Tucker White 94 with 20 bits. Are we sure this is the same Stix who regularly tells us that socialism is evil? Yep, same one. Lord Necroj, is this before or after the bathrobe? Because the fact that his chest is showing is creepy. This is before the bathrobe. This is from a while ago.
Well, of course it works. I called up demons. The Lesser Keys of Solomon purports to be an ancient text, as of the time of its authoring, based on actual ancient texts from Judea, from the ancient time, literally from Solomon, in the apocryphal manner, in some of these apocryphal texts, binding these various spirits to build the temple, driving out possessed spirits from possessed individuals and so forth. And it's actually a Renaissance era work. It comes from the 15 or 1600s from Europe. Does this mean that the work isn't based on an older work? No, it seems that it's based at least on those apocryphal writings, and scribes compiling that material along with various rituals that then...
Towing24 says Lovecraft was also an ultra-racist and suspected Klan member, so Stix liking him is unsurprising. Yeah, I assume that's part of it.
Would have been accepted in the Renaissance period. The Necronomicon is no different. On that token, I don't see how it's demonstrably different from a lot of these Renaissance-era grimoires that all point to some ancient text or ancient...
It isn't. They're all fake.
...ancient figure or ancient philosophical system or religion, and then purport to be actual grimoires.
That's
it's
wonderful.
No different. And the thing is, people use those grimoires... And they either see a real-world effect or they think they see a real-world effect. That's the second issue. I'm of the mind that the occult is not monolithic. A lot of people seem to believe there's one specific path they're trying to find.
Tinfoil hat is just as effective if it doesn't cover your whole head.
That operates properly and the rest is all junk. Or there's one philosophical system that works and the rest do not, or they work very weakly. I believe that any ritual system, or ritual work, or occult text, or occult object can become genuinely occult simply because of a belief in it. A lot of people do believe that the Necronomicon is a legitimate...
Does Stix think that if enough people believe in a thing, it becomes real? Because that's demonstrably not how reality works. If I get, 5 billion people together on the planet, just a random number, that's a big number, and I get them all to believe in fairies, it doesn't mean fairies start to exist. We're not going by... What's that show, or what's the book series? American Gods by, I think, Neil Gaiman? Like... That's how that works in that series, in that fictional series. That's not how things work in the real world. Things don't start to work, like magic spells don't start to work just because a bunch of people believe in them. Belief is not fueling reality. Belief is just what we seem to understand about the reality around us. Daddy Sume with 20 bits. Orcs, the orcs. Humans are clearly orcs. They believe it, so it makes it true. True. It's so stupid. It's so utterly stupid, right?
Occult work.
That does sort of explain Stix's strategy in terms of claiming voter fraud, though. If he just says it enough, maybe he thinks it'll come true, even though there's no evidence. Who knows?
Therefore, it is invested with a sort of psychological energy, and you can get into all sorts of weird stuff with this within metaphysics. You can get into quantum theory, the wave functions collapsing and so forth, and say, well, you know, it may not invoke an actual...
I heard Deepak Chopra say some of these terms, so I'm going to repeat them as if it means anything in terms of my belief in literal magic spells.
Demon or entity, but it's invoking some sort of power, and therefore it can have an effect if you're in the right state of mind. And you sort of psychologically agree with its contents. As to those who believe...
That was word salad, by the way, yes. Absolute word salad. Make sure you get that on your bingo cards. Word salad. Let me see what I have. Do I have word salad on the bingo card? I do. Ooh, if I get the gay agenda and chemtrails, I'm good. But we never get chemtrail videos. I should do some chemtrail videos sometime.
That it is a legitimate grimoire. Again, there's no evidence that the Necronomicon is literally based on ancient lore. Most people believe it's based more heavily on Lovecraft's work mixed with some ancient Sumerian influence that's been heavily transmogrified. Regardless of whether that's the case, it doesn't...
I was literally making fun of him for taking this seriously by comparing it to thinking Harry Potter is real, but I just looked at the title of video 2 in this same series, and it's the Occult video 2, Real Occultism in the Harry Potter series.
Oh, boy.
Preclude the Necronomicon from actually working, if somebody is capable of making it work.
There's nothing funny
However,
about capitalism.
looking at the Necronomicon,
Colossus TV with 20 bits, there's no evidence to suggest the Necronomicon is based.
and being fairly well versed in Sumerian mythology and so forth, it does have some parallels with it. I would like to believe that if you're calling...
Oh my god. Lupine is kind of wearing the tinfoil hat.
I don't have my phone to take a picture.
That's a shame. Hold on.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Okay. Can you get a list of bingo tags? Let's see what we got so far. Word salad, ancient wisdom, numerology used as evidence, reptoids, aliens, Hannah might die of laughter, Freemasons, Illuminati, and racist disbelief of historical achievements have been done on the bingo.
upon some ancient pagan god that at one time in...
Let's take a look at this video on Harry Potter.
Alright, YouTube, it's time
What
to
is with Stix thinking everyone wants to see him without a shirt? It's so weird.
talk about the occult once again. This is another occult topic that I think really hasn't been talked enough about because there are two schools of thought on the subject of this video, as indicated by the title. The first is that the Harry Potter series is just, you know, standard fiction. It has no relation to the actual occult. And then the other sort of vein of thought is that you find within evangelical Christian movements, which is that Harry Potter is going to cause people to dedicate their time to literal witchcraft. I can remember years ago there was some sort of crazy website where they had pictures of little kids dressed up as, like, you know, Harry Potter wizards with a Ouija board or something, and they said, oh, well, these children have been possessed by the power of evil because they were fooling around with Harry Potter magic. However, even though those same Christians are delusional, and the Harry Potter series...
Wait, the Christians are delusional and you just spent a whole video previous to this one explaining why you think H.P. Lovecraft is real? Cool. That's not hypocritical.
It most caused people to, you know...
Stix also mentioned in the last video that belief in something could somehow lead to it being real. And if that were the case, Christianity would be one of the more real things because so many people believe in it. They might believe in different kinds of Christianity, but like billions of people believe it. So if the rules were, if you believe in something enough, it becomes real, evangelicals would probably be right, but they're not, because that's not how reality works. You can't apply a double standard like that.
Research Wicca or something like that. or maybe certain pagan paths, and really didn't lead them into genuine magic. The Christians are technically correct on one thing. There are references to actual occult phenomena, names, figures, and ideas, and objects as well, within the Harry Potter series. They are there. However, the amusing part is this. This is what really causes me to laugh. The kids and who got into Harry Potter, magic, quote unquote, and the Christians who demonized it, focused on the cauldrons and the frogs and the general applause for the idea of witchcraft being good, but they did not dig deeper, and if they had, they would have actually seen that there were very real occult references within this work. The most notable example is probably the Philosopher's Stone, the Sorcerer's Stone in the American version. The Philosopher's Stone is an object, a mystical artifact, that was said to be created through various means with alchemy, with the alchemical process involved in making a material pure enough to transmute other metals into gold. You see, this is what...
That's not real, if I need to say that. Alchemy attempting to turn, like, lead into gold, that's something Isaac Newton was actually into. Not real. Not a real thing you can do. Nope. Colossus TV with 20 bits. Right, this is Kyle. He's really into demonology, ghost main, and supporting the right-wing fight for justice. Oh, and Harry Potter and its contents are real. Daddy Sume with 20 bits. He definitely said through various alchemical memes.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
What the first story in the Harry Potter series revolves around. The Sorcerer's Stone is a centuries-old concept that actually comes from the occult. It's I have to wonder, actually.
There's nothing funny about the tools of capitalism.
Well, I'm thinking about it. If J.K. Rowling didn't either have some knowledge of the occult or acquire it when she was acting.
I don't think she probably did. It's probably coincidences. She may have looked up certain things like the Philosopher's Stone or whatever, but other than that,
funny about the tools of
Phosphophyllite with 69 bits. Everyone knows the Philosopher's Stone allows you to bypass the law of equivalent exchange. I understood that reference. Okay. Full Metal Alchemist. Lily loves stuff with 20 bits. If Isaac Newton tried to make a Philosopher's Stone and that isn't real, wouldn't gravity also not be real? What? No, as it turns out, people can be wrong about one thing and right about another thing. It's funny how that works.
Actually writing these stories. The second example would be the Hand of Glory. The Hand of Glory is not generally known about outside of the circles of dark magic. The Hand of Glory is a sort of a cursed artifact, and the summation of this object in Harry Potter is essentially real, and essentially based on the actual item. And
no. It's not. It's not real, Stix. Magic isn't real. Colossus TV with 20 bits. Can the Philosopher's Stone transmute chuds into decent people? I don't think so. That's impossible. Arcana Stamper Black Hole with 20 bits. I love occultism, but that's because it's like... Because I'm like a historian anthropologist, that doesn't make it real, Stix, yeah.
And the item is simply a hand that has been specially obtained. I believe it's specifically a thief's hand, obtained under certain conditions, under certain phases of the moon, properly prepared with ritualism involved. And the idea is that you take this decapitated hand and you have it clutch a candle, a black candle, I believe, and that it will only give light to the person who first conjured it, to the dark magician themselves. And the idea is that they can go around in total darkness. Nobody will ever see them. Only they can see by that light. Nobody else sees it.
Hey, fun fact. That's not how light works. Chesabel with 20 bits. The Philosopher's Stone isn't any more occult than the concept of humors. Both were supposed to be science. They were just wrong. Yeah, I don't know. Stix is confused. I think it has something to do with whatever part of the brain deals with determining what's real and isn't real is apparently the same part of the brain that makes people recognize they shouldn't do all their videos with their shirt off. Maybe it's a tumor. I don't know.
You see an allusion to the Hand of Glory also in the now fairly famous movie Brotherhood of the Wolf, which, by the way, as an interesting aside, the special effects coordinator for Brotherhood of the Wolf worked with Nicholas Schreck on You Might Be Sitting Next to a Satanist. I believe it was that specific work that he did. Which is very strange. Just another little, and there's some involvement with Ninth Gate as well, so take that as you will. And all of these movies are, let's say, red-pilled on the occult idea. But the Harry Potter series does have actual occult references in it.
Right. Like, J.K. Rowling probably went and looked up, like, oh, what are some magic things people believe in? And then she put those in the book. Because if you're writing a book, you'll do research sometimes about a topic, especially if it's not something you're very familiar with. I assume J.K. Rowling didn't know anything about magic, of what there is to know about fictional magic, because magic isn't real. So she probably looked into different myths about magic, and then used some of that in her writing, because that's what you do. You look for information that's interesting, and then you integrate it into your story if it's applicable.
Mermaids. Here's one that she got right that many authors have not. Most of the time when you hear about mermaids, you hear about some beautiful being that...
Stix, you don't believe in mermaids, do you? I have more faith in you than that. And I have so little faith. Please don't believe in mermaids.
It's mostly human, but just has a long fish's tail, and they're glimmering and dancing and laughing, and they're extremely feminine, and if there are males represented as well, they're extremely masculine, they're very, physically attractive, they have big chests.
Daddy Sume says Stix 100% believes in mermaids. I hope not.
And flowing hair and so forth. The actual idea of the mermaid is sort of a rancid, horrible sea hag. Loosely based, I guess, on the idea of the Cyrene from Greece, sort of from the Odyssey and things of that nature. And of course, the view of them as beautiful also doesn't make sense when you think that most of the sightings of these creatures were drunken sailors who had been in the sun too long out at sea alone without female company, seeing manatees, or possibly other aquatic specimens.
Okay, so he knows that mermaids aren't real, so why are you bringing them up in regard to J.K. Rowling getting them right? There are certainly depictions of mermaids that are like sea hags, like you're saying, but there are also depictions of mermaids or sirens as incredibly beautiful. They both exist in fiction, and only in fiction because they're fictional. One isn't necessarily more right than the other.
A manatee doesn't look anything like the Little Mermaid. It looks more like the sort of mermaids that you see represented in Harry Potter. And going beyond that, there's just the general paranormal in every other sense. You've got the trolls, the goblins, you've got all sorts of things.
You don't need to do any research to know that trolls and goblins are fictional characters in fantasy worlds. That's not an accuracy thing. That's a literally knowing cursory things about fantasy.
Does that mean that the spells and sort of the mumbo-jumbo material is real? No. It's simple. Most of it is simply Latinized, short statements that equate to spells that she made up.
Traverse Music with 20 bits. I just discovered you through clips on YouTube, and your stream is fun, and it's great to be here. Love what you do. Thank you.
Lumos and Wingardium Leviosa and all of this other stuff. They're not real spells. Obviously, you can't take a stick and wave it around and cause these things to happen.
But
however, the basic concepts are there. It's theatrical, it's sort of Hollywoodized, especially the movies. If you read the books, and I think unfortunately a lot of us, those of us who read the books and then watched the movies,
the wily veterans, thank you for following,
were extremely disappointed until the third movie. The first movie sucked completely. The only novelty there was that it was the Harry Potter movie, see it in the big screen. The second movie was slightly better, but still cut out most of the important material. After that, things got better. The idea of the basilisk. This is not the sort of paranormal cryptid-like creature that generally appears in normal conversations just about cryptids. When you're thinking of cryptids, there are two groups of creatures that you're thinking about. The first are creatures that probably exist in some form, or they're physical beings. They may be misattributed from an actual entity. For instance, Bigfoot could be an escaped gorilla. But it's based on something real. And then there are those that are more fanciful, more ancient, and they're based on occult texts.
2man642 at 20 bits is someone who was in the middle school 100% believed in ESP before realizing it's not real. It baffles me that some people can make it to adulthood with these delusions of grandeur. It's very strange. Also, he's putting way too much, like, okay, look. The Basilisk is a pre-existing fictional creature, a cryptid, like he's saying. But he's acting like J.K. Rowling already knew what a basilisk was and then was like, I don't know what a basilisk. I think the thought process probably went more along the lines of, okay, Voldemort's a snake guy, or he's gonna be a snake guy. Well, it was the second book, so she's like, he speaks parcel tongue, right? Like, you're gonna speak to snakes, and this was set up in the first one, too, because Harry Potter also, being a parcel tongue, can talk to the snake at the zoo. Right? So I think she thought, I want the big bad monster at the end of part 2 to be a big snake. To give some air of legitimacy to this big snake, are there any fictional, like, big snakes that exist in mythology? And then she found the Basilisk, and she's like, perfect. Big ol' snake. That's, and again, everything else aside about J.K. Rowling being a shitty person today, right? Like, that's a fine thing to do when you're writing, but, like, it's not amazing. She's not using, like, some, like, ooh, she went into the third level basement of a dusty old occult bookstore. In fact, she probably, did Google exist at that point? She could probably just look up big fucking snake, basilisk, boom, got it. I just find it weird how much credit he's giving J.K. Rowling for just, like, looking things up.
The basilisk fits right in there. These are figures that appear in the Pikachu.
Dr. Gamble with 20 bits says, look, Stix, if any of those things in myth are real, we would have reported it by now. The scientific community would be reveling in this, and us laymen would never go in the water or woods again. True.
Tricks.
Daddy Sume with 20 bits, Hannah, this definitely counts as expert, gives an opinion outside of his field of expertise. He clearly knows nothing about literature critique. He's not an expert in anything, though, and he's not even claiming to be an expert, so I don't know.
The Grand Grimoire, the Ars Goetia, and a million other texts of older origin, as opposed to modern cryptid research, which is where you find most of the descriptions of these creatures. For instance, to a modern cryptid researcher, the idea of goblins is ridiculous. They're either going to say they don't exist outright, or what you're actually seeing is maybe some sort of monkey that hasn't been described yet, or some sort of hominid, or maybe aliens. That's what they're going to tell you. If you ask somebody who practices a more authentic, older version of occultism,
Set
are
the
goblins
shall
real?
low,
They will say
thank
yes.
you for
They
following.
will say you may not be able to see them all the time, but they are there. The idea of things exist.
He did mention aliens. If you have aliens on your bingo card, go ahead.
On other wavelengths that only temporarily cross over with ours, that essentially existence is arranged in wavelengths.
Daddy Sume with the link.
In essence, a sophisticated heat beam which we called a laser.
The same way that a radio works. If you're tuned to 100 FM,
He did mention Satanist. I think I already got that, though.
you're not going to be able to perceive something that's coming in on 95 FM. The wavelength is wrong. You cannot perceive it, but that signal is still there. All you have to do is...
But radio signals are real, and goblins aren't. So, checkmate, beard guy.
tune it to see it, to hear it. It's the same way with a TV that works with an antenna. It's simply a frequency, a signal. The idea that this is what I think behind most of the cryptid stuff, most of the occult stuff, is simply temporary crossing over of another signal. Either our wavelength has temporarily altered slightly, and begun to manifest things from another, or the other one has begun to change slightly and has crossed over into our world.
That's a bunch of woo-woo bullshit. Otherworldly creatures from alternate dimensions are not somehow slipping into our dimension. Bigfoot is not an interdimensional traveler. Bigfoot is fictional. Same with Loch Ness Monster. Same with a lot of these cryptid things. The Chupacabra, the whatever. Whatever you want to think it is. None of this stuff's real.
And that's what I believe. I think it's perhaps a rare event, but it is, I assume, possible to do. And it fits in with, multiverse theory and how many dimensions there are and whatever. But the books, Harry Potter books, a lot of the content in there is either directly from the occult, like the Hand of Glory, like the Sorcerer's Stone, or it references actual occultism, but the names have been changed or the facets have been changed somewhat. Or you're simply looking at fairly well-known lore, the idea of werewolves, all of these different things that they have in the book, and all of these different characters. I found it funny, as time went on, J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter franchise became more politicized. You can see, around the book number 5, you can really see politics and sort of disdain for authority creep into the books.
Walter Kovacs, thank you for subscribing at Tier 1. Shadow Witch with 50 bits, trigger warning needed. Basilisk has been a nightmare. You roll the wrong way and the next thing you know, your stone is in a pit and your souls are lost. Sigh, JK, TTYL, much love.
I have a feeling that most or all of them, the basic point is question authority and do what's right rather than
I didn't get that reference.
necessarily what's allowed. You can see that facet repeated over and over and over again in every book, more and more rapidly as the series winds down. However, the occult takes at least a second row seat in the Harry Potter books. It's not simply complete fantasy. There are actual principles there.
It's fantasy. It's all made up. Stix, even if she borrowed from other sources, those sources are also made up. It's all fake. There's no such thing as magic, and even if you try and rebrand magic as, oh, it's the quantum strings and blah, blah, you can use whatever nonsense word salad that you got from Deepak Chopra or whoever. Doesn't make magic real. We live in a material reality. You cannot, using your thoughts, bring things to be without taking physical action. You just can't. And frankly, looking at how stupid you are in regard to, like, this occult stuff and you believing that literal magic exists makes me feel like a fool for even bothering to waste any time looking at your political videos, because on the face of it, it is so clear that you are out of your mind. Like, you're sitting there talking about Harry Potter, and then like, well, here are the magic things that they got right in Harry Potter. No, they got nothing right. They pulled references from earlier works and other works of fiction, but none of it's real. Magic isn't real, Stix. Maybe that's why he started wearing the red robe. Maybe he thinks he's turning into a wizard slowly. And this is just what his wizard outfit is. He's like, put me in Gryffindor! Hooray! That's enough, Stix. Fuck this guy.